In this video, I wanted to give you guys my 2 cents on the things that are going on in Afghanistan and why I kind of saw the writing on the wall years ago. So, the Afghan army, or the ANA, most of them are foreigners. And from my time in, most of them have been foreigners. A lot of them were part of the Taliban or informants for the Taliban. A lot of them were, not really dedicated to doing the job. The few native Afghanis that were part of it were the serious ones. Those were the ones that you could typically count on. But when you have like 2 native Afghans in a platoon or whatever, like 52 native Afghans for 50 foreigners, do you really think those 2 are going to stay there and represent the unit still? Especially when their own command, that's foreign as well, abandons their post? Probably not. And it's probably going to be quite discouraging when you find out that most of them are not there to actually fight. They're there just to get a paycheck or to flee their prosecution for being criminals in another country, because that's really the composition of most of the Afghan army, from my experience. Also, the Afghan commandos were an issue too, because if you ever read the book No Way Out, you're not only going to find out how the army has been pathetic, and it still remained pathetic before all this stuff unfolded, but how the Terps are better trained and more patriotic than even the army. So, and actually willing to fight more than the army is. So, anyways, the government is gone. There is no Afghan government, and there really never was. I never really considered it an actual government. I believed it was always a straw man government. It was just an idea. It was just an illusion. It was like a holographic government. It was there, but there was no substance to it, right? And now, most of them were actually former criminals, or former Taliban, or former Al-Qaeda, but because they wanted to fill that position, we were allowing it because we wanted that holographic government. We wanted to be able to say they had a government. But there really was no government. It was just the optics of it. That's a big thing, optics, and you're going to find out more about that here in the future with everything going on. But the government's gone. Now, Iraq was different in both of these cases, because Iraq, yes, they did have cover-up government, but they actually were most of the time native to the country, and they weren't necessarily former criminals like in Afghanistan. Some of them were, but for the most part, there were also elections and stuff like that. And Afghanistan had this idea of what a government was supposed to be, what its capabilities were, its outreach, and everything else, and they were comfortable with the idea of a government. And they understood what the value of having an army was. So when ISIS came knocking on the door, you had more native Iraqis in these units than you did foreigners. It's the other way around in Afghanistan, and the ratio is completely off. So you might have had like 60 or 70% native Iraqis in the army, and in Afghanistan, you have like 5-10% and stuff like that. So that's why the Iraqi army was able to hold their ground until we were able to assist them, but a lot of them did melt away. So just like the Iraqis did when we invaded, they melted away, a lot of them, but you did have a lot of commandos and stuff like that that actually did hold their ground and actually started making progress. Also, the government, you had a lot that fled in Iraq. Well, here in Afghanistan, you had them all just disappear. They're gone. And some of them might have flown out, and others are just gone into the woodwork because they're former Taliban, and they probably initiated this whole travesty that's happening right now. So, anyways, that's the current situation with Afghanistan, and that's my experience, and that's what I think happened. I think it's a negotiated turnover of Afghanistan to the Taliban from the insiders in the government and in the military. You've always had insiders in the Afghan military because they could never verify. And it's always going to be an issue, but there wasn't enough of a spine, i.e. native Afghanis that were actually invested, that could actually hold the line. So it was doomed from the beginning. So the only serious city has been Kabul, and there's not enough people there to actually hold the line for the whole dang country. So the next is the Terps. It's really sad about the Terps because, as I mentioned before, the Terps were actually better warriors, and they were very committed to Afghanistan. And luckily, one of our Terps that was with our unit, he's here in America. He's got friends that made it out, and unfortunately, he also knows a lot of people that are stuck there. And according to the reports of one of my former squad leaders or some other people that know Terps as well, they're going house to house and hanging, killing, shooting, mutilating, torturing, whatever, capturing Terps, or anybody that's worked for the Americans, anybody that has actually worked with the Americans or the Allies or worked against the Taliban in some way, shape, or form, or just believes in the ideals of America or a free Afghanistan, they're being punished now. And punished the Taliban way, the Sharia way. So that's really sad. And we have abandoned a lot of those people. There's a lot of Terps that are stuck over there that had been working with America for 10, maybe 20 years. Maybe they just started working or whatever. It doesn't matter. But a lot of times the Terps were very reliable. And it's really sad that we abandoned those people. And they were promised, hey, yeah, you'll get a path to citizenship or whatever. And they kept delaying it and delaying it. And fortunately, there's a few people that were able to get it, but they had to wait in line and all this other stuff. I would say they should be getting the priority. Because a lot of these people were there at the beginning, or they were serving even before they were adults and helping U.S. forces out a long time ago, and actually fighting before there was an official Afghan National Army. So that's really sad that we abandoned those types of people. So, now, talking about abandoning people, we got Americans over there. The State Department saying that they don't know how many. That is either a lie, which is criminal, or they actually do not know because they were actually told not to count. And I believe both of those are a possibility, and I believe that they were told not to count, or they're actually lying. And I believe the reason for either one of those would be that the administration, along with what was left of the Afghan government, they were negotiating with the Taliban. I believe it was part of the negotiation to say, well, whoever's left, you can have. So we basically have one of the biggest hostage situations in the world right now, and they're probably going to ask for ransom and all this other stuff from the American government. We might pay them billions of dollars, just like we did to Iran in the Obama administration, i.e. the current administration is basically just a more radical offshoot of the Obama administration. So you got to understand, what happened at 13 hours is the name of the game. And when this Yoo-hoo got unofficially elected, I said, what happened in Benghazi, this is what's going to happen all over the world. We're going to have people that are left behind, and we're going to play into hostage situations and all this other stuff. We're going to start paying terrorists, and terrorism is going to come back to our front door. You know why? Because that's what they want to happen. So this is basically the first attempt at the administration's world apology tour. But they're not going to do it by physically going and apologizing. They're going to do it by offering the lives of U.S. citizens as sacrifice, or paying money as sacrifice. So it's going to be a little bit of a different game, but the result is the same. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall that Afghanistan was going to go away. Whether we went in strength and actually helped out our Terps and didn't leave people behind if, like, Trump was reelected, this was still going to go down. Afghanistan was going to fall regardless, because they did not come from a background of a government, except for in Kabul. But even then, it wasn't really a serious government. It was just for the little city. And that was it. They were alone from the beginning. So, yeah, that was the end result. That was the writing on the wall. You cannot control an area that does not want to be controlled. If they want to stay tribal, fine. We did not need to be there for a million years and try to force a Western-style, culture down the entire country's throat just because somebody in Kabul got this fancy idea to control the whole country now. Regime change does not work like that. It does not work very well. Even in Iraq, we still need to be there to help them out, because they still are not up to the capacity where they are actually self-sufficient and able to secure their own sovereignty indefinitely. They're not at that point yet, but I believe that there's more hope for Iraq than there ever will be for Afghanistan. But other than that, I have no opinion. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and you guys have a goodish one, as best you can.